Hello. Hi, Joe.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, good, thank you. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much
for
for coming
joining.
on.
You are very, very welcome. So, Joe is joining us today. Joe, sorry, is a employee engagement specialist and has her own company, Vision 29, and she's
Yep.
going to be sharing with us lots of expertise that she has. So, if you could start us off with introducing yourself, Joe, what it is that you do, that would be great.
Yeah, good stuff. So I'm Jo. I'm the founder of Vision 29. The Vision 29 I founded back in 2013 originally. It was a marketing consultancy when I founded it then. And I worked with companies of all different shapes and sizes to create their marketing strategies and to deliver those. In doing that, I found that I started working with some companies on their internal communications, and I realized that I was much more happier when I was working with internal audiences rather than external audiences and customers and so on. So over the years, I kind of adapted the proposition for Vision 29 and moved away from the marketing and much more into internal communications, employee engagement, employee experience, and organizational culture. In doing that, I decided to dip back in-house for a couple of years. So I kind of paused Vision 29, went back in-house, got the in-house experience, which was absolutely crucial for, kind of understanding internal comms and EX or employee experience from an in-house practitioner's point of view. And then last year, I jumped back out again, reinvigorated Vision 29, but this time it's very much more around the employee experience and organizational culture side of things. And I think overall, my proposition really is kind of helping leaders, internal communicators, and HR folk to create happy, healthy, and engaged workforces, all on the basis and using the power of employee voice.
Employee voice, amazing. Thank you for sharing that and the story of your business there. So fantastic. So I wanted to ask, what sort of trends are you seeing at the moment with team engagement, just to get some ideas on what you're seeing in terms of trends and what companies are doing and what they're not doing, perhaps.
So I think, there's no doubt that with COVID, there was a real kind of change. It was forced upon us. We all had to work from home. We all had to talk and think about employee well-being, and we really started looking about how we can keep people engaged, even though we were working in a dispersed way. And there was this real kind of drive, and for internal communicators and HR professionals, the people becoming the priority was number one. All leaders were talking about this. Internal communicators were amazing, we've got a seat at the table, our voice is being heard, we can champion this, and we thought it was going to stay like that. And I think one of the biggest trends right now is that as times are changing, as companies are hitting harder financial times, what they're doing is almost reverting back to looking at the old metrics of performance and success. And we're seeing that the people agenda is kind of almost going back down in the order of priorities. So I'd say it's a real tough gig right now for the people profession in kind of really making sure that that people stay on the top of the agenda. And so in terms of employee experience and engagement, what that means is that we've got to work much harder in really kind of making that link between happy employees, healthy employees, engaged employees will improve organizational performance and the bottom line, and that we shouldn't, kind of what's the word, not focus on those areas and focus on that, the hard and fast financials, because what we'll do is result in more disengaged employees, and then more people will leave and go to other companies. I think what I'm also really noticing, and I do feel very passionate about this, I think we'll come on to it a bit more, but there's definitely a huge dip in engagement by the companies who are forcing return to work or return to office mandates, and kind of really upping the days in the office from 1 or 2 and quite a lot of flexibility to mandates of 3, 4 or even 5 days in the office. And again, that's having a real big negative impact on employees' sense of belonging and their engagement. And as a result of that, a lot of employees are looking for other companies that will give them that flexibility. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they hold all of the cards and that employees are saying that they don't want to work in the office and they don't see the benefits of it. It's just, I think companies can go about it in a different way to keep that engagement high.
No, that's an interesting perspective. Yeah.
And then the other thing I was going to say in terms of trends is that companies that do embrace employee listening and giving their employees a voice, they're the ones that are being more successful in implementing anything, whether it's hybrid working or transformation or organizational change, but for employees who feel that they're heard, that they have a voice, that they're contributing to the future of the business, then they're the ones where they're the companies where engagement is remaining high.
That engagement and feeling listened to is like you say, really, really important. But what are your thoughts on like the hybrid working model? Is it one size fits all, or what? Does it depend on certain factors? What are your thoughts?
No, I mean, I am so passionate about hybrid working. So when I ran my business before, for about 4.5 years, I did the marketing for an office-based design company. So I wrote all their blogs, all the marketing material, and this was way before COVID. But I really got into the psychology of the office, kind of the design of the office and the impact that can have on your collaboration and how well people work, like even down to the colours of the office, all that sort of stuff. It all has an impact. So I knew, like, I was quite passionate. It was called smart working then, really. But I was very, very passionate about, kind of, we don't have to all be in the office 9 to 5 in order to be productive and effective. And we all proved with COVID that we could all work from home and still be just as effective and productive. And I think right now we're seeing in the press a rise in these, larger companies that are mandating this return to office. But definitely, like you're saying, this one size fits all kind of approach. And I really think that they're doing themselves a disservice and that it could be done in a much better way. I think anyone that wants to return to office, and I never debate that there's benefits of being, kind of hybrid or office based, but really anyone that wants to put that into place, they've got to know their facts. They've got to, kind of do their research, crunch the numbers, look at and come up with real valid reasons for why people should return to the office more, kind of 3, 4, 5 days a week. If those facts are there, if they've done the research and they can share that with the employees, then the employees will take it on board a lot more. If it's just like, because we're not productive, but there's no evidence there, employees aren't really silly, and they know that they're being productive or their team's being productive, and they're just not going to buy into it. So first of all, give some real reasons for why you want to dial up more office-based working. And then I would say people need to, or companies or leaders, they need to then engage their employees. So in a company that I was in, we did a whole return to office initiative. And what we did is we set down our mandate. So as a company, what our non-negotiables were that we wanted people in the office to ideate, socialize, kind of co-create, whatever it was, and some other things. And then we went out to everyone in the business and we asked them why they would return to the office, what was important to them, what would they get out of it, what kind of were non-negotiables to them. We put it all into the melting pot, and then we came up with something that worked for us and for employees in the main. It wasn't that everybody got what they wanted, but we took all of this on board, and straight away what we saw was that there was a much higher engagement in the hybrid way of working that we then rolled out. And it was much more effective from there on in. And again, in that one size fits all, within a business, there's no one size fits all. So every company is different, depending on who they service, what their customer needs are, how they're set up. But even within that business, I think it's okay for leaders to own the narrative, to say, we've got some people that need to be in the office 5 days a week because of the job they do. They cannot physically do it from home, but others, they can do it more flexibly, or they need to do it more flexibly, or they're field-based or whatever. And it's okay to have all these different groups within the business, as long as the leaders can be very open and transparent about that. And so then what we did when I did this within another company is we then let every department come up with their own cadence. So we said there was a minimum amount of time that they could work from home or be in the office. And then we let them all come up with their own cadence, and then we piloted it, and then we iterated. And I think if companies do it that way, then there's a lot more buy into it, learnings from mistakes, kind of variations, and just testing and coming up with the right cadence that's right for your business.
Excellent, thank you. Because, like you say, every team is different, isn't it? And what I tend to find is some people they only want to work from home, whereas perhaps what I'm seeing a little bit more now is that they actually want to be in a team and they want to be interacting, with more people. So every business, every team will need to tailor make this plan, if you like you say, as to how frequent, how not, that it's going to, what's going to work best. Do you think that a lot of leaders they're very assumptive and it's a bit of a guessing game, so they just assume and they just guess what's right?
Yeah, I think so. There's a lot of assumptions. There's a lot of overlaying their preferences oftentimes, and especially like middle managers. So I find that even if the leaders are very open-minded to it, it's the middle managers that, oh, well, I want to see my team in the office. I want to make sure that they're working, and I can only do that if I see them in the office. Or, kind of, like you say, a lot of assumptions. Whereas I think if we do this kind of open co-creation, employee voice, employee listening, you tease all of that out, and then you've got the real evidence that you can work from. And, I think also the way we work nowadays, you don't always necessarily work, there's me and my team and we're all physically together. We have a lot of cross-functional teams that are spun up to work on certain projects. A lot of us also have teams that are in other offices within the UK or Europe or even worldwide. So it's not so simple as like everyone has got to be in 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, and that works. So I think, it's almost going a little bit too draconian back to even way before kind of where we'd got to in COVID, or before COVID. So
you're seeing it going, it's slipping back, and it needs to come back. It needs to be like people first, engagement, them having that voice. How is that done out of interest? Is that done in sort of like best done in like team discussions, or is it done like via like some sort of survey where they're giving sort of anonymous results and feedback? What's the most productive approach, do you think, to doing that?
That's such a good question. So I think usually what I would generally do is a survey is good because it gives you, especially, it depends on the size of the company, but it gives you that kind of really good like baseline and your quantitative data that you can work from, and then doing some focus groups. And it 100% depends on the company or whatever. You could do a mix of people from all over the different departments, or from different areas, or you can say, no, we want this to be departmental or location if you're kind of European wide or worldwide or whatever. So you kind of work that out, and then I think the focus groups are really good. I would always say, not just because I'm an independent consultant, but I would still always say, have somebody, that's not within the business to kind of moderate and run those sessions. Somebody's got the skills in listening, but also it removes any of that bias, or I think it enables people to be really open and really honest and transparent without fear of saying something in front of their boss or their boss's boss or the CEO, or kind of feeling that it's going to be misinterpreted or taken a certain way. Because if you've got somebody in-house moderating it, then there is a risk that can happen. And then you can kind of you put the two things together, and you've got some really good foundations for the recommendations. But the other thing I would also do, and because I really strongly believe in this, is like always on listening. So always, kind of using loads and loads of different channels. There's technology. There's a technology that has kind of always on listening, whereby people can go and make comments all of the time, and so you're constantly feeding into, or colleagues and employees are feeding into this constant narrative about it. And you can just see when people hit blockers, or when something is good and everyone's like, this is really working, so you can dial that up. Or if there's issues,
good feedback as well as the not so good as well. That's interesting. So there's tools where companies can have employees put feedback in, sort of good or bad, anytime they want, and it's like pooling together all of that data. That's really interesting, that, because it's sometimes you forget, don't you? And actually when something's happened, you want to do it straight away so that information gets through.
I mean, it's like the annual survey. Companies still do it, but if all you do is an annual survey, then I think you're really missing the trick, because we live in this always on world. Yeah, and it takes so long. And like you say, you're being asked in the survey to think about how you have felt over the last 10 or 11 months, and it varies so much. And
Yeah,
how you felt
it's
10
more
months ago is
relevant.
very different to now. So I think if you still want to do them, that's fine, but supplement them with pulse surveys, which are focused on specific things that that you need to check the pulse on. And then this always on listening, I think, is amazing. And there's so many ways you can do it. It depends on where you are, I guess, the culture of your business, and kind of where you are in terms of trust and transparency. But you can do things with like with your CEO, kind of joining sessions as well, so they're all face to face or in person. There's so many ways you can always
Different
gain
methods, and you'll
feedback.
get different information from different methods that you'll use. But I really like how it creates it as something quite special as well, when you're bringing in yourself as an independent consultant. Surely that makes the business, the members of the business feel like this is taken seriously and things are being done properly and the voice is being heard, and that it's important and as part of the values of that company to get this right.
Yeah, definitely. I was actually on a call earlier today, and just saying all of that, we were just talking about potentially working with this client, and I was saying it's so good. It sends such a different message, and all of your comms around it can say your voice is so important. We really want to hear it so much that we are actually investing in it. So it's a really good message. And obviously, most important though is you can do all the listening in the world, but you've got to then follow that up with action. So
Yeah.
the leaders of a business, they've got to be open-minded to whatever they hear. And that's what I really like about being like an independent consultant, is all I do is go and listen, and then I translate that and present it back. And it's like, I've got no bias. I've got no, there's nothing for me to gain apart from accurately reflecting what I hear and then making the recommendations about what changes can happen in the business. But it's that change and that commitment to change from the leadership that is so crucial and critical. And if they don't make any change, then that will result in employees becoming more disengaged pretty quickly as well, and disillusioned, and then they won't participate in anything like that again.
Yeah, they need to be open-minded to that change, like you say. But it's like if you don't have that data, you don't have those answers, how can you do anything about it? Having that information, allows companies to make those improvements, doesn't it?
Yeah,
To
and
be
it's
more
informed
efficient, to be more
decisions.
productive.
Yeah, it's like in marketing. So with my marketing hat on, you would never launch a product without going and doing your market research, your competitor research, asking your customers, getting all your customer feedback. Yet in business, we feel sometimes that we're the leaders, the C-suite, whatever, and we've got to have all the answers. We're going to make this change. We haven't consulted anyone, and I just think there's another way that we can do it. And
There's another
the
approach to
leaders,
do it, rather than the
yeah,
what's this, what's that, blame culture. Let's look at what's going on and doing it that way. No, I really like it. And you have an approach as well, which we spoke about, which is the employee end-to-end journey. So could you
mhm.
explain to us what this means and what is
Yeah, so I
involved?
mean, I love this. If I ever get the chance to go into a company and look at their whole kind of, like end-to-end employee experience, I get really, really excited, because it means that we can have a look at, I guess what I like to create is to create like the company, the employer value proposition, the whole experience, the culture that you're talking about, kind of on your socials, or your existing employees are talking about. And it's so good to work at your company that people want to work there before they even know that they want to work there, because they're seeing all this stuff on socials, or people are talking about it, and they're like, oh my God, that seems like a really good place to work. I'd love to work there. And the way you create that is by, kind of mapping out the whole employee journey, from like even pre-onboarding. It's like a talent attraction. So what's the story? What do you say? What are the benefits? What is it that's so great about your company, and how can you bring that to life in your attraction, like your job adverts and all of that? It's obviously got to be authentic, so you've got to be living it before you can put that in. But you start the story there, you go through the application process. That's all really, really nice and friendly, or however your culture is. You apply for the job, you get it, you get onboarded. Your whole onboarding journey is very consistent, and kind of a great experience then in life. So all the way through, you get your recognition, you get partial probation, it gets recognized, 1 year anniversary, like all those big moments that matter are kind of consistently recognized and celebrated in your your organization's way. And then even when if you do choose to leave, your offboarding, your exit interview, it's all done in a way that kind of you still feel part of that kind of that company or that family. And then so much so that you would always be an advocate of them. And there's even alumni, and there's I don't know, you get called back, or not called back, but invited back for kind of big celebrations and that sort of stuff. And it's just creating that, seeing the whole journey all the way through. Often what I've found is you apply for a job, there's one team that have done that, so the HR team or talent attraction team, they've used a certain tone of voice. Then you get onboarded, and then you go into the finance team, and it's just a whole different experience. You could almost be working in two totally different companies, and then you get promoted into another department or team, and it's a different experience. So for me, that whole, looking at the whole experience,
candidate experience, from end to end, isn't it, from start to finish? I read a post, a quote yesterday, I think it was, where somebody had said that actually leaving a company is just as important, that experience of and exiting a company, as actually starting with a company. And I thought, wow, that's really, really, really true. Yeah,
definitely, because you want them to go in whatever circumstances they're leaving. You want them to go, that final thing, you want them to go, okay, I'm leaving for whatever reason, but that was a really positive exit. We were able to talk about things. I got my grievances off my chest, if there were any, or it's just a really good, fond farewell. And so therefore, if I had the opportunity, I would recommend people.
Yeah, exactly that. It's a good experience, isn't it?
Yeah.
Great stuff. I wonder whether you could perhaps share some success stories, with some of the clients that you've worked with. Has there been any sort of eye openers? Some of those, examples perhaps of projects that you've had.
Yeah, I've got a few. So one that's most recent is I was working with a client. They came, they had their ideas. They wanted us to do some listening exercises. They had their ideas about what we were going to find. And we did all the listening exercises, and it wasn't what they thought they were going to find. So that was just really good. So, they were like, this is what we think, we know our staff really well. And in doing all of the listening, we found some other things that supplemented that, which were more important to the employees than, kind of the team that had kind of appointed me. So that was really good to see that, you can make these hypotheses or the assumptions, but then, whatever falls out of that, the listening exercise, it might not be what you think it is. And then you've got to kind of be quite open-minded to other ways of forward.
That proves that it works, doesn't it? It proves absolutely that it works, the approach.
And then another one that always springs to mind, I think this is really what clinched for me moving from from marketing to internal comms, was I worked with a huge financial services company. They brought me on board to do their employee engagement around their move to a new building. This was many years ago, about 10 years ago. In all honesty, I didn't really have a clue. Right, I did not know how I was going to do this, but I worked with them for about 15 months, and it was the best project I'd worked on. And I, kind of cut my teeth on internal comms and employee engagement. And I remember moving us all into this building, going from oppressive, dark, dingy 1970s style buildings where everyone would fight for meeting rooms. Everyone was like meh. They literally were meh. And then we moved into this gorgeous big building. It was bright and airy, and there was loads of sofa areas, and just little, not necessarily meeting rooms, but just little areas where people could just spin off and go and have a chat and a coffee. But looking out over the whole atrium and just seeing this buzz and connection and activity, and people were just happy and joyful. And
that sounds so good.
That's how a physical space and providing the right environment and conditions for people to connect and thrive really can make the difference to employee experience and engagement.
Wow, and you really saw that, and massive contrast, like from where they were to where you then moved them to, and you could feel the difference in the energy in the room and how people were interacting and behaving. So that work environment space, being really, really important. When it comes to personal development, so personal development plans, PDPs, are something that companies do. They do those one-to-ones with their teams. Are there any tools that you could perhaps recommend for personal development? to support?
Ooh, yeah. So I've been having a lot of discussions lately about whether PDPs are a bit archaic and whether we should have them in that way. And I think for some companies, they probably would never be able to let go of having them. But certainly some companies I've been talking to lately, they're like, no, it's so okay. It's a bit like this like annual, kind of employee engagement survey. It's like you need to be having these conversations all of the time. I mean, we probably both know when we've been in employment, you'll meet with your manager, you'll set your objectives for the year, you'll go, yep, and then you'll go and file them away somewhere, and you'll get on and carry on doing your jobs. And then 11 months go by, and you think, oh my God, did I do my objectives?
What
You
was
get
that again? Yeah.
kind of reverse engineering it. And I think like changing the mindset to this always talking about your performance and your development, and having one-to-ones or check-ins on a regular basis where and it's more holistic. It's like how you're doing your job, like that your objectives, like delivering on your on the job, but then it's about how's your well-being today, and like what's going on in the rest of your life that
Yeah.
kind of is going to impact how you're performing in work, and what's your motivation like, and like just being aware of all the other kind of
The person as a
things that,
whole, isn't
yeah,
it?
exactly. And so I think I don't know, I feel like I'm also personally much more going towards this like always on personal development and managing it that way. You obviously need some framework still, but I think encouraging managers to be much more present and kind of involved in their teams on a regular basis will get much more out of them and increase the engagement and the overall experience than this kind of annual PDR review. And there are tools.
Yeah.
There's one that, I mean, I only really recommend tools to companies once I know the company, because I think a lot of tools suit certain companies more than others. But there's a couple. There's Mojo, which I love. It's quite an easy tool to use, and it focuses much more on your motivators, and you can work out what your motivators are, but also what the motivators are with your rest of your team. So then within your team you've got like different profiles of people, and you can dial things up or dial things down depending on who you're working with in your team. And then
Nice.
there's OpenBlend, which is a really good platform, and that helps you just think about kind of your well-being, your motivators, and it's a tool to help managers and employees with that kind of one-to-one, which I think often managers are promoted because they've got good on-the-job skills, and they're not always supported by giving all of the other skills that they need to be really effective people managers. So this is a good tool to kind of help them with that.
I think you're definitely right there. Those leaders need support as well. But that sounds really cool. I like the sound of those applications because, yeah, as a technology, that's interesting. I'm going to look those two up. But yeah, thank you for those. So you talked about employee voice, which has been really, really, really important.
Yeah.
And we talked about the end-to-end journey. Are there certain like exercises that companies can do, like listening exercises, to understand why people perhaps move on? What are your thoughts around that kind of exit interview listening?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a lot that you can do without going like what we've talked about. Like we're doing a listening exercise around a particular thing. You can inject listening into everything that you do. So from a internal comms perspective, if you're or a leadership perspective, you're doing your town halls. You can have Q&As at the end of them. You can have them anonymous, or you can make it so that people put their names to them. Even if you're doing, I don't know, like your weekly internal comms newsletter or email, at the end of that you can ask people, was this useful? And if everything that you're communicating about, you're getting people to just on a 1 to 5 scale just click kind of that was or that wasn't useful, you're starting to work out what is important to your employees, and you can kind of change what you're talking about for that. I think your managers and leaders are absolutely pivotal. So again, giving them the skills to be able to really listen and understand what's going on with their employees and spot when people aren't good or when they are good, that's really, really important. Your managers are, they're absolutely pivotal. They work with their staff all of the time. So for them to be able to kind of, dial up their listening all of the time, and it's not just tell, then that's really, really important. And I think when it comes to the exit interviews, it's just really important to have, it's a holistic view. So let people get things off their chest, but also ask, it's okay to ask, what could we do differently? What could we do better? What would you recommend? Just have those open questions and not be afraid to hear what people have got to say, and then pick up the trends and feed that back into the business so that you can make those changes.
Thank you. Yeah. Are there any certain trends? I wondered if there was any certain trends as to why people do move on from companies. Do you see any patterns as to the main reasons why people do leave?
I think, look, this is just my view. I think a lot of people move on because they're not feeling heard, because they're not feeling valued, they're not feeling seen. Kind of, they're probably, can end up being quite disgruntled in that respect and think that there's something better somewhere else. Or they don't know what their purpose is. So they don't know what the company's purpose is. They don't know what the business strategy is, and they don't know what their role is in delivering it. So I think if you get those two things together, like, we're really clear, this is where we're heading, this is what we're doing, and this is your role in it. And then also giving people the opportunity to say, okay, I get that, but we're doing this and it's got nothing to do with that. And, kind of allowing people to have a voice and contribute to the success of the business. People will feel much more engaged, and, it will stop them from wanting to move on. I do also think another reason people leave is poor managers. Kind of,
That's what they always say, isn't it?
yeah,
You don't leave your job, you leave your manager. So
yeah,
people
yeah,
work from people, don't they? So that
yeah,
does
and it's
happen.
very, very true. And I think now where we're at, the biggest thing is lack of flexibility. So the companies that are offering flexibility, and I'm not saying, I'm not saying it's got to be totally flexible and you've got your people that are working from home, doing the school run, going to the gym, all that sort of stuff, but like true, kind of mutual flexibility and trust. Companies that are offering that and a good overall employee experience, they'll be the ones that will retain their employees. Whereas ones that aren't, I don't know how to put this, your best employees are going to go and your mediocre employees are going to stay. And then what you're going to end up with is a very mediocre workforce, because all your best ones have gone because they know they can get something better somewhere else.
That's a really good insight. Thank you. So we talked about assumptions, and obviously the listening element is really, really important. Are there any other ways that companies, that leaders could avoid making assumptions? How to avoid assumptions? What would you say they could be doing?
I think the biggest thing there is authenticity. So for leaders to make themselves approachable, to communicate authentically, to show empathy, and vulnerability. I think all of that will mean that they're not making the assumptions. So if you look, an assumptive leader is somebody that thinks they know they have to have all of the answers. They've got to look, to be in control all of the time. It's the opposite to what I've just described, really. So, if as a leader, you can be vulnerable and, put yourself in other people's shoes, ask the questions, show that you don't know all of the answers, but together you're going to come up with them. I think, that will really, really help.
It's like communication, isn't it? Finding the best, like the optimum way to communicate with those people, so they open up and they speak to you about how they are and what could be better.
Yeah.
That all round communication, isn't it?
Yeah. And I remember during COVID, when I was in house with the one leader within the business, he did weekly Teams calls with all of his department, and he was like, you can ask me anything, and people, you know, like anonymously were asking any single question they wanted to do, and he was like, I'm going to answer every single question, and if I can't, I'm going to go away and find the answer and bring it back to you. And he did that consistently and religiously. And then you saw the transformation. At first, people were a bit like, oh, no, I don't believe so. After months, they were like, we absolutely know that you're going to do this. The questions that they asked were no longer anonymous. Everybody put their name to it, you know, and you could just see the transformation in that part of the business, because, you know, he showed all of those traits, and, you know, he just really transformed it and developed the trust. And just, you know, it was fascinating to see, to be honest.
My amazing overall experience improved. And when it comes to empowerment as well, I wondered how you perhaps support and advise so that teams feel empowered.
Well, again, I guess it's about everything that I've just said, isn't it? So as a leader, you know, almost, you know, kind of being subservient to your team, you know, kind of just saying, I don't know all of the answers, and let's do this together. And, you know, you're giving them the freedom to go away and come up with ideas and put ideas in the pot. And even if, you know, put something in, you say, that's a great idea, but it's not going to work now, or, you know, we can't do that. You just get that mutual respect. And I think you're unleashing everybody's potential all of the time then, is, you know, creating that psychological safety, so that people do feel empowered to go and do things and try things. And we might fail or we might mess up, but it's okay. I've got you. Like, you know,
give them the opportunity
okay
to have a go and, you know, put them forward for things. And so it's not like that leader's doing everything. They're actually delegating, isn't it, to people, so they feel empowered that they can also, you know, support the team and support the business.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed our conversations today, and I hope that the people listening will definitely be taking something away from this. If there are people out there that would like to reach out to you, Jo, like, what's the best way to do that? Where will they find your information online? How can they contact you?
Oh, amazing. Through LinkedIn's the best place. I post on there most days. So if they start following or connecting with me, then they'll never be able to hide from me again, because I'm on there all the time. But just search me up on LinkedIn and drop me a DM or just get in touch. That'd be great.
Yeah, fantastic. Is there anything else you wanted to add at all? Anything else that we missed? I know you were at a festival, weren't you? Was it yesterday? You were at the Employee Engagement Festival?
Yeah, the Employee Engagement
Oh,
Summit.
cool.
Yes. Yeah, it was really good, actually. Lots of good sessions, loads of people there to meet with, which was great. I'm also at a few more. There's a business culture event next Thursday that I'm at, and a few other events throughout May. So there's lots going on. So if anyone, that's another thing, I guess, like if you're in-house, like go out, go to some events, listen to some webinars, mix with other people, because you can often feel quite blinkered in your world and think that you're the only people going through, you know, whatever challenges you're facing. Whereas if you get out, you talk to other people, very much in internal comms, employee experience, everyone's having the same challenges, and everyone's really, you know, they share ideas. And I've gone to, you know, kind of groups and said, oh, I've got this problem, and everyone's like, oh yeah, we had that last year and we did this campaign, it was so good. And you come away with loads of great ideas, and, like, you know, just reinvigorated and stimulated again with new ideas about what you can do in your own business. So I definitely would say, you know, make the effort and get out to some events and get some new ideas going.
Fantastic. Yeah, I can hear it in your voice. You're very, very passionate about what you do, which is amazing. So thank you so much, Jo, for joining us today. And hopefully I'll see you soon in Milton Keynes at one of the events.
Yeah, definitely. Good stuff. Definitely.
All right.
Thank
Speak
you.
soon. Take care. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.